the top 5 new quarterback wide receiver duos for 2023. And this is going to be, of course, quarterbacks that are now throwing to new wide receivers, whether it's via trade, whether it's via the NFL draft. And this is my top 5. I think these will be the 5 best new quarterback wide receiver duos for 2023. Of course, we would put, Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, maybe number 1 overall connection in the league, maybe, Bills and Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. Those guys aren't going to be on here because it's not a new one. So let's get into it. The 5 best new quarterback wide receiver duos for 2023. Number 5, Geno Smith, the JSN. Geno Smith to Jackson Smith-Njigba for the Seattle Seahawks. JSN was my number 2 receiver coming in. A lot of people's number 1. I like JSN. I have no problem with him at all. I don't believe he was the best receiver in the draft. Again, that was Jordan Addison to me. But Geno Smith just winning comeback player of the year, having that DK Metcalf, having that Tyler Lockett, and having that Tyler Lockett prototype in Jackson Smith-Njigba called this pick in the NFL draft. I believe they're going to be a great connection next year in terms of new quarterback wide receiver duos. Geno Smith, again, going to be under that Seattle Seahawks offense. Played with house money last year, shocked a lot of people. I believe Geno Smith can still be a very successful quarterback in this coming NFL season, and having DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and JSN is definitely going to help him out. Number 4, Lamar Jackson and Zay Flowers. Lamar Jackson signs with the Ravens, re-signs with the Ravens, right? A whole lot of flock going on, as Lamar Jackson says. And they draft Zay Flowers. I can't remember how the draft played out. They should have went Jordan Addison, but he falls to the Vikings, which was a steal. Either way, though, Zay Flowers. And if I got that wrong, excuse me. Either way, Zay Flowers here. One of the better receivers in the draft. Lamar Jackson. I should have said Lamar to OBJ, but I just don't have the big-time faith of OBJ really making it to where they're a consistent new wide receiver duo I'm talking about them with. If they do it, great. I'll eat crow, and I'll happily, put them in these rankings. Lamar Jackson is Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers is a speedster. He can be a deep threat. He's a crisp route runner. He's very technical. Lamar now is getting his true wide receiver 1, and he had the Hollywood Brown, but it was very iffy there. He's had the Mark Andrews, who really was that wide receiver 1, still there. Of course, he's in the tight end position, though. Zay Flowers feels great here. Hate how Rashad Bateman hasn't necessarily been able to stick. I believe he's still there with the Ravens. But Lamar Jackson and Zay Flowers is going to be one to keep your eyes on next year. Number 3, if you're peeping the graphic below, it's going to be Derek Carr to Chris Olave. And the reason I say so, Derek Carr, in the best roster he's ever been in, more than likely, well, potentially. I want to say good coaching. I know it's a good culture, but I don't like Dennis Allen. But he's in reasonable coaching. He's familiar with it. I know Dennis Allen is going to give Derek Carr the keys. He drafted him when he was a rookie. He played with him when he was a rookie. Or he coached him when he was a rookie. Pause. And now he's going to be getting him 10 years later. And Chris Olave is a speedster. We knew about him coming out of Ohio State, played major for the Saints last year, whether it was Andy Dalton, whether it was potentially Taysom Hill, whether it was, God, I can't even remember. Of course, Jameis Winston. Chris Olave impressed me a lot last year. I believe the big arm of Derek Carr, the fearless gunslinging mentality of Derek Carr, being inside that Saints offense and behind that Saints offensive line, Chris Olave connecting. I wanted to do Carr to Michael Thomas, but again, I'm skeptical about the injuries of Michael Thomas. Derek Carr to Chris Olave. Chris Olave, great speedster, can play at any point in the field. Big, fearless, big arm, gunslinger in Derek Carr. Number 2, Trevor Lawrence to Calvin Ridley. So excited for Calvin Ridley to come back to the NFL this year. Falcons trade him away for a pack of cigarettes, what it felt like. I believe it was a 4th or a 5th round pick. We know Calvin Ridley's coming back from suspension. Trevor Lawrence is expected to take that major leap and be elite as a quarterback this year. And I love Trevor Lawrence. I believe that he'll do just that. I believe he will be fantastic underneath Doug Peterson. They did get a playoff win. Now he's going to have Calvin Ridley. Now he's going to have Evan Ingram, which was really needed to happen for that team. Evan Ingram was very happy. He said, I needed Jacksonville. He's going to have Christian Kirk. He's going to have Travis Etienne. He's going to have Tank Bigsby. So Trevor Lawrence is going to be very comfortable with the talent around him, and especially throwing to Calvin Ridley now, who's a very technical route runner. We saw what he did in Atlanta. Great number 2 receiver next to Julio, and really moving into that wide receiver 1 position. in the later days in Atlanta before he gets shipped out. And I hate that he's not with the Falcons anymore. That I'm also happy that I don't have to get pestered by him twice a year with the Saints secondary, who thankfully tightened up, if you know what I mean. Who Dat Nation. Trevor Lawrence to Calvin Ridley, number 2. And number 1, I almost wanted to put Trevor Lawrence to Calvin Ridley, number 1, but the number 1 best new quarterback wide receiver duo for 2023 is Aaron Rodgers to Garrett Wilson. And this one might seem interesting for some folks. As much as I've been bashing Aaron Rodgers and saying that the Jets are just not going to be good, and Aaron Rodgers is playing with these new these new receivers that are young, and Garrett Wilson's in his second year, and Robert Saleh's in the first few years still as a coach, and they're kind of still trying to find the winning culture, and it's just not going to be good, blah, 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 for Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets. That's been my whole take on it. But, despite all that happening, I can still see Aaron Rodgers and, I want to keep saying Russell Wilson. I can still see Aaron Rodgers. I like that, Brian. I like that a lot. Thanks for throwing that up there. I'll comment on that in just a second. I really believe that Rodgers to Wilson could be a major connection in the NFL this year, because Garrett Wilson was a great receiver, whether it was Mike White, whether it was Zach Wilson, whether it was Joe Flacco, winning offensive rookie of the year with no sense of quarterback throwing to him. Aaron Rodgers, we know he's elite. Outside of what happened last year, he's an elite regular season quarterback. We've seen how he can play. He can shy away from competition at times later in his years, but we know he's a baller. He's a competitor. Aaron Rodgers to Garrett Wilson will be the number 1 connection. You got the sharp route runner in Garrett Wilson. They've been connecting a lot, in this offseason. Aaron Rodgers seems to have gotten a new personality under his belt, and overall is just excited to be with the Jets. I know there was the rumors of, or not the rumors, but I know he had the ankle injury that really hindered him and hurt him, or kind of kept him out of the OTA. So it was a rougher start for the Jets to the week, as J Mac on the Herd said. But number 5. So again, the 5 best new quarterback wide receiver duos for 2023. Number 1, Aaron Rodgers to Garrett Wilson. Number 2, Trevor Lawrence to Calvin Ridley. Number 3, Derek Carr to Chris Olave. Number 4, Lamar Jackson to Zay Flowers. Number 5, Geno Smith to JSN. And that, did you just call out 3 Buckeye wide receivers? Yeah, I sure did. Mr. Muck. I absolutely did just call out 3 Buckeye wide receivers. You guys put that talent in the league, man. There's no question about it. Y'all put the elite wide receiver talent in the league. Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be a monster next year. God, we could have Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. both playing for the Cardinals or maybe the Titans. Those are my kind of 2 worst teams going in next year. Yeah, I did, man. Garrett Wilson, monster. Chris Olave, monster. JSN, monster. Mechie and Stroud. I like that comment as well. I like that comment a lot. I was thinking about that one. John Mechie, I believe, is set for a breakout year. I'd like to, it is going to be a new quarterback wide receiver duo. I can get with it. I'll do an honorable mention maybe in there of maybe about the 7th position, because I was going to say Kirk Cousins also to Jordan Addison for an honorable mention as well. But I believe Justin Jefferson's still going to get most of the attention. It will be a great connection, but I don't believe it'll be greater than the ones that I just listed up there. But Kirk to Addison would be number 6. I'll go ahead and throw Stroud and Mechie in at number 7.